Good afternoon and welcome to the Johnson Space Center. My name is Bettina Inclon with NASA Communications. Thank you for joining us for this post-docking news briefing of the NASA SpaceX Demo-2 mission. Just moments ago, astronauts Bob Behnkenare and Doug Hurley arrived at the International Space Station aboard the Crew Dragon. Today we'll hear more from NASA leadership to tell us more about the mission in the last 24 hours. With us today is NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, Mark Geyer, JSC Director, the Director of the Johnson Space Center, Steve Sitch, the Program Director of the Commercial Crew Program, Kenny Todd from ISS, the International Space Station Program Director, Deputy Program Director, and Shel Lindgren, NASA astronaut. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. We're going to start with opening remarks, and then we'll go to questions from reporters. So first up is our NASA Administrator, James Bridenstine.
Thank you, Bettina. I just want to say congratulations to the NASA team and to the SpaceX team, and really congratulations to the United States of America. This has been an amazing 2 days. We're still at the beginning. We have a mission in front of us, and of course we need to make sure that we bring Bob and Doug home safely. But when we think about launching American astronauts for the first time on a brand new rocket, this has been done 4 times in the history of the United States. Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Space Shuttle, and now Crew Dragon. So it's actually 5 times now. And this has gone as well as we could have expected it to go. So I just want to say a big congratulations to NASA. Big congratulations to SpaceX, and we're going to continue to work day in and day out until Bob and Doug are home safely. So with that, Bettina, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mark Geyer, the Director of the Johnson Space Center.
Thanks, Bettina. So it's great to be here today. Thank you for joining us. It was a tremendous day in mission control as we watched the Dragon approach and then dock and the hatch open and have Bob and Doug come forward into the space station. You know, we've been launching with our Russian partners for so many years, so it was nice to see astronauts actually enter from the U.S. side of the space station. Great to see Bob and Doug on orbit. For the Johnson Space Center, it's a big moment. Of course, we have the astronauts, we have mission control, and we also think of ourselves as the spacecraft experts for human spaceflight. So it was great to see this particular mission executed so well. We look forward for a great continuation of the mission. Thank you, Bettina.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Steve Sitch, the Deputy Director of the Commercial Crew Program.
Good afternoon. It's certainly a very exciting day to be here for Commercial Crew. The launch yesterday was just phenomenal, and today to dock to the space station. Many of us in the program have been working on this for many, many, many years. I can't tell you how many people across NASA, SpaceX, and across the whole country putting in tireless hours, missing time with their families, hard work and dedication to make today happen. But we're just thrilled. Docking happened just a little bit before 9:30 Central Time this morning. We got the hatches opened at 12:02. Really what's been happening since launch over the last 24 hours has been a series of rendezvous burns to raise the orbit and then get into this approach phase today. Today went really well. We're learning a lot about the vehicle, you know, how to manage it thermally, watching the life support systems for the first time over these 24 hours. Certainly different than Demo-1, where it was an uncrewed flight. Those life support systems are doing well. The crew got in the suits again today for the rendezvous timeline. That went well. So really, Dragon's performing extremely well. Just kind of the next few hours and into tomorrow, you know, the crew now is joined as part of the space station crew. There's a safety brief going on today. They'll go to sleep here around 4:30 this afternoon. And then they join the station complement of crew to execute what we need on station. So it's kind of this hybrid mission still. We'll have some other objectives while we're docked to demonstrate other capabilities of Dragon. It serves as a lifeboat. We'll practice some of that in the next couple days. And we'll do some other tests just to verify all the Dragon systems. But again, we're really excited. We're going to continue to look at all the data. You know, great mission so far, but we've got to continue to be vigilant and look at all the data while we're docked. I'll turn it back over to you, Bettina.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Kenny Todd, the ISS Deputy Program Manager.
Well, thank you, Bettina, and it's great to be here. What an incredible 24 hours for human space flight. you don't have to be just American if you're just a fan of human space flight and exploring and going beyond the levels of what we understand to discover. You can't help but be excited about what's happened the last 24 hours. It was very, very cool to be a part of it from an International Space Station program standpoint. We don't think it could have gone any better this morning. The station certainly was a good, stable platform, and the Commercial Crew program and the SpaceX team delivered us an absolutely beautiful spacecraft, and we're happy to have it on board the space station. And equally as glad to have Bob and Doug on board. Right now, Chris Cassidy was a little lonely up there, being the only person on the USOS, so having two friends up there, we will do our best to keep the three of them busy, and in concert with working with Steve and the Commercial Crew program and the SpaceX team to learn as much as we can about the Dragon. And as others have stated, this is a test flight. What's really important for the International Space Station program is really the next mission of the Dragon, which is the Crew 1 mission, which is set up to be a long duration flight. So what we want to do is learn as much as we can, as quick as we can about this vehicle, keep Bob and Doug busy doing work on that Dragon and on the space station, and when the time's right, get them back home safely, and then start looking towards getting the Crew 1 mission on board. So anyway, we're looking forward to the next few weeks, couple of months, whatever it turns out to be, but certainly it's off to a great start. Thank you, Bettina.
Thank you, Kenny. And next we'll hear from Shel Lindgren, NASA astronaut.
Thank you, Bettina. You know, what an incredible privilege to be a part of this phenomenal team, this NASA SpaceX partnership, and to be a part of this historic past 24 hours, to see that launch, to see the vehicle dock with the International Space Station. Incredibly happy for Bob and Doug, for NASA, for SpaceX, and for America. You know, for the past year and a half, I've had the opportunity to train as the backup for this mission, to work with Bob and Doug, with SpaceX, and with NASA. And it was just so cool to get to see all that training, those procedures, the simulations, all kind of culminate in it happening real time. And so incredibly excited to see Bob and Doug get to work now as they do the space station's mission, and then return safely home. You know, I know that my colleagues and friends in the astronaut office are incredibly excited too. This mission represents the opportunity to launch from U.S. soil in the future, and we're excited about that mission and excited to have the opportunity to fly in the future on this and our other partner spacecraft.
Thank you, Shel. If you would like to ask a question, you would please press *1 and you'll be part of the queue. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. As usual, we're going to ask for one question per reporter to give all the media as many opportunities as possible to ask their questions. And please direct your question to the person that you want it to get answered. So we'll start with the first question from Marina Curran.
Hi, everyone. Congrats on a successful docking. Jim, this question is for you. As Bob and Doug slept last night, the situation on the ground in the United States escalated. And you said before that this mission is meant to bring people together and unite America. Unfortunately, it's clear that a space mission, even one as historic as this one is, can't do that, not in 1969 and not in 2020. So I'm wondering, do you think that the message here should change in any way? How can we celebrate American space exploration while also recognizing what Americans are going through at home?
Yeah, so I think I'll just speak from the heart. I think you know, our country is going through some real challenges right now, and that's true when you look at the unrest and when you look at the coronavirus pandemic. Times are really tough, but we've been through tough times before, and even in those tough times, the United States of America has an amazing ability to accomplish astonishingly impressive achievements. And that's what this was. And I will say that I think, you know, there was a moment of time yesterday when these two astronauts launched, when everybody paused and we thought about what the future could be and how much brighter it could be than it is right now at this moment. And NASA has a history of doing these astonishing things in tough times. It requires leadership. And we've been able to achieve it. Even in the coronavirus pandemic, we made sure that we protected this mission. This was the highest priority for the United States of America, or for at least for NASA. We were launching American astronauts on American rockets from American soil, and our objective was to get that done. And so we moved very quickly. When the coronavirus pandemic first broke out, we moved very quickly to move to stage 3 and then to stage 4, make sure everybody was working from home. But we protected this mission. We protected the Mars Perseverance mission. We named it Perseverance intentionally because we need to persevere right now. The Mars Perseverance mission is going to launch in July. But yes, these are very unifying things. When we talk about human space exploration, it has strong bipartisan support. When we talk about space exploration in general and the science and discovery that comes from it, which is what we're going to get from the Mars Perseverance mission, these are unifying kind of things. Republicans and Democrats, and even internationally, we get support for these kind of activities. So I do think that this was a moment in time for people to reflect on what is great about exploration, what is great about the United States of America, and what we can achieve when we work together.
Thank you, Jim. Our next question comes from Stephen Clark.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. My question is probably for Steve Stitch. Looking forward, looking ahead over the next few weeks, I know you'll be looking at some data on the solar arrays to determine how long this mission can remain in orbit. Do you have any idea how long that will take, when that assessment might occur? Do you have some sort of idea whether it's days or weeks as you monitor the solar array performance? And if I could also quickly, what are the differences between this spacecraft on Demo-2 and the Crew Dragon that'll fly Crew 1? I know there are some differences. Can you sort of describe a few of those? Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Stephen. To address your first question, how long is the mission going to be? We've certified the systems on this Dragon vehicle to be able to last about 120 days. So that's the capability, and that is driven by the solar arrays. They slowly degrade over time. We'll start watching those. We'll power up the spacecraft about once a week, and we'll get some data on those solar arrays. So it'll probably take a few weeks to get trending on that to see, hey, is that 120 days about right? Today, the Dragon is extremely healthy. There's really no major problems, so it should be able to stay for a longer period of time. But not only are we looking at this particular vehicle, we're also looking ahead to Crew 1. As Kenny said, that's an important mission for us. It has 4 crew. It really is what Commercial Crew is about, having a vehicle ready to do these increment missions. So we'll look at that readiness of that vehicle. Right now it's targeting toward being launch ready at the end of August timeframe. And so we'll just kind of continue to look at this vehicle. Is it performing well? We'll look at the readiness of that vehicle. And then, in a month or so, we'll be able to make a decision as to how long to keep this vehicle in orbit. The second question was, what's different between this version of Dragon and the Crew 1 vehicle, which is the next Dragon? They're very similar in terms of their systems, the life support, the GNC. The Crew 1 vehicle can land in a little bit higher wind state. The SpaceX has changed some of the outer composite panels to make that a little stronger. It can land in higher winds. It also has the capability to dock not only to the forward port of the space station, but it can go to the zenith port as well. So it has that capability, and it has a couple of other features, but largely it's the same vehicle, and it's set up for 4 crew, and then can dock at either port, and then a little bit better capability relative to landing in higher winds, I would characterize as the big differences.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Stephen Cowan.
Did you mean Keith Cowan?
Oh, sorry, the operator put Stephen Cowan. Keith, happy you can join us. Your question, please.
That was my evil twin. For Mr. Bridenstine, I've been watching a lot of TV lately with a lot of split screens, NASA on one side, riots on the other, and it reminds me of 1968 when I was a kid watching the Apollo missions. You say that the Demo-2 coverage topped everything, yet these heat charts that you were showing on TV yesterday seem to suggest that the only interest that you're seeing is from the states where the Dragon was built and flown, California, Texas, and Florida. Can you provide some more detailed stats to back up your claims? But moreover, and I know this has been asked many times, how do you convince the millions of angry and upset people who were not watching TV, they're out in the streets with their phones and wearing gas masks, that two guys in a spaceship is more important than the problems that, in quotes, we have here back on Earth, which was the line that was used back in 1968. There doesn't seem to be a connection between what NASA is doing and this subset of the population who is looking for answers.
Yeah, look, I think what NASA does is astonishing. It's impressive, and it does bring people together. If the expectation was that things on the ground were going to change because we launched a rocket, I think maybe the expectation might have been a little high. But I will tell you that Bettina, do you have the numbers on how many people watched on NASA TV?
So we're still collecting the data, but some of our metrics are saying is peak viewership for the May 30th joint NASA SpaceX launch broadcast across all of our platforms was at least 10.3 million concurrent viewers, the most watched event we've ever tracked.
Yeah. So I think it is impressive, and I think a lot of people saw it. I think the whole world saw it, and we're very proud of that. And I just want to make sure that we can continue to congratulate the SpaceX team and the NASA team for doing amazing work, even in the midst of tough times.
Yeah. And I will say those numbers are only for the NASA SpaceX. That doesn't count broadcast and other agencies and news outlets that we're talking and promoting this incredible achievement for humanity. So we'll go to our next question. Marcia Dunn.
Talk with Elon Musk since docking, and if so, if you've heard from him and how he's dealing with all the good news today. Thank you.
Marcia, can you repeat your question? We think we missed the first half of it. And if anyone has other questions, please press *1 to be added to the queue. But Marcia, if you could please repeat your question.
Yes, for Mr. Bridenstine, I'm wondering if you've had a chance to touch base with Elon Musk since the docking, and if so, what he's saying about it. Thank you.
I have not. Since the docking occurred a few hours ago, I've not had the opportunity to speak with Elon Musk, but that will be coming up, I would assume, in a few hours.
And I can just say from the whole SpaceX team, I've talked to a lot of their leadership. They're just ecstatic. Their mission directors are extremely happy. Their engineers, the lead of the Dragon production, his vehicle did it outstanding in these first 24 hours of the mission. So, when you talk to the SpaceX employees, they're very proud of what they've done. They've worked very hard, and they're excited to have this phase behind them.
So if there's any other questions, right now we've gone through most of our questions. I guess we've done so many great media events throughout the last few days. I know we've tried to give as many access to reporters. If anyone has a question, you could please press *1 to be added to the queue. In the meantime, we'll say, I know the administrator, we've gotten a lot of questions like what's happening with the astronauts. We heard them just recently, thankfully, through the downlink that you spoke to them on Mission Control. Any thoughts on that, or Guy, or anyone that's joining us on the panel, of what the astronauts are doing now, what's going on in the next few weeks, and what's going to happen now that they're part of the ISS team?
Mark?
Yeah, maybe I could speak to that. It was great to see them all together. I know Chris was looking forward to having help. So yeah, there's a great video of them together. I think the key part now is, as Steve said, the vehicle is there, the crew's on board. That was the main thing. Let's make sure Dragon and the mission is going well. And Kenny can speak to this. There are some options for Bob and Doug, some actions for them to help Chris while they're there. And that will be part of the assessment, as well as making sure, though, that we have a landing plan, since this is the first flight, right. That we have a safe and fairly straightforward landing plan for Bob and Doug, and that's what the team will be fleshing out in the next few weeks.
And I can talk a little bit about a few of the major objectives for us still remaining, other than characterizing the vehicle. We have a test, I believe it's going to be planned for sometime next week, where we're going to get 4 crew members in Dragon just to see how that works from a habitability perspective. While we're on orbit, operating in 0 G is a little different than on the ground. So we'll do that. We've got a test plan. There's a mode of Dragon where you can actually go into it if station were to have a problem temporarily. You can transition into Dragon and stay there for a period of time for 24 hours as what we call a safe haven. We're going to test that out here in the next week. We'll do some tests of some of the other emergency systems on Dragon and other crew systems. So we have a few of those things planned over the next week to get some of our test objectives done. Again, for us, it's still a test flight. And then I think I'll hand it over to Kenny, and he can talk about some of the activities stations planning over the next few weeks.
Thanks, Steve. Yes, we are now starting to integrate the plan between what we need to do for the Dragon crew vehicle, what kind of things we need to learn, the test objectives that are specific to the commercial crew program and the SpaceX team that'll help them again get a little step closer to being able to support the Crew 1 mission needs. But in addition to that, we have a couple of spacewalkers on who have an incredible amount of experience being outside station. And so we are blessed at this point with a whole new set of lithium-ion batteries that just arrived on the HTV vehicle. And so that's going to take somewhere on the order of 4 to 5 EVAs to install those. And so at this point, we are looking at all options that could allow us to do those EVAs while we have Bob and Doug on board and get those lithium-ion batteries installed in their permanent home. Certainly, they're fine where they're at, but I do worry. This is fairly expensive hardware. The batteries that are currently installed on station on S6 are the last set of batteries that we need to replace with these new lithium-ion batteries. Those batteries are in good shape at this point, but the fact of the matter is we have the new batteries up there. When the HTV goes away, we're basically going to have to temp stow these new batteries, and it would be in our best interest to go ahead and have those batteries installed and have that work behind us and not have these assets basically in this temporary holding pattern, if you will. So that's something we're going to be looking at as we start to put the requirements together for what we need to do with the commercial crew program, as well as what we need to do with these batteries and some of the other things on station. But in addition to that, anytime we have more than a single crew member on board, we're in a much better position when it comes to dealing with any kind of issues, failures that might come up. So again, that's part of the balance, the risk balance that we have to strike in terms of trying to look at what we want to try to accomplish on this mission versus trying to get these guys safely home sooner rather than later, and again start working towards the Crew 1 mission.
And I would just add from a crew perspective that I know that Bob and Doug are just excited to be on low Earth orbit, successfully docked to the space station, and I think at this point they can breathe a sigh of relief. You know, launch, of course, is an incredibly dynamic phase of flight. Meeting all of the manual flying objectives, having the opportunity to fly a spaceship in low Earth orbit, both away from the station and then closer to the station, to demonstrate that capability, and then to have a successful docking and to come through that hatch, that at this point they can relax a little bit and enjoy being on the International Space Station, having that opportunity to look out the window, to see the Earth below, to float, to maybe have a meal with the crew that's on board that they just joined. I know they're doing a safety brief right now, and I recall doing that, meeting up with Scott Kelly and the rest of the crew members that were on board during my expedition, and going through all of the emergency equipment, kind of being shown, hey, this is where the toilet is, this is where you're staying, this is where the food is, kind of crossing off all of those important items, and then having that opportunity to just get used to floating in space, being in that weightless environment. And Bob and Doug, of course, are veteran space flyers, so that readaptation process will happen very quickly. But I know that they're enjoying being in low Earth orbit, and looking forward to the work ahead. But at this point, kind of reflecting on the incredible experience, the incredible past 24 hours, and the team at NASA, at SpaceX, their family and friends that really helped them get up there.
Thank you so much. I know, Mr. You were talking earlier about what's next with the program. Anything to add on that?
Obviously, you know, we've had a big agenda to commercialize low Earth orbit. That's underway. Certainly, we are launching American astronauts commercially. We need SpaceX to go get customers that are not NASA. We've already seen evidence of that, which is a very positive thing for the agency because it's going to drive down our costs in the long run. We need to get another commercial partner on board. Boeing is working towards that, that objective with NASA, and I think that we're going to have success there within the next year. We think about really why are we doing these commercial public-private partnerships? Well, we're doing it because we're changing the business model. If the government is providing all of the demand for human spaceflight, and then the government is providing all of the supply for human spaceflight, we will always be limited by budgets. And many times those budgets are whimsical based on the desires of the politicians that happen to be in those roles at the time. So if we want to have a sustainable long-term exploration campaign that includes not just government money but also private money, we have to build these partnerships, and we're doing it. It's proving to be successful. Costs are coming down, access is going up, and we don't want to just stay in low Earth orbit. We want to go to the moon and onto Mars. That's going to require more investment, and of course, as we commercialize low Earth orbit, more resources will be available for the moon program. We call it Artemis, and eventually Mars. And so that's really the future that we're looking towards. We need to be focused on how we use the International Space Station for a commercialization effort, so that private capital will flow in, again, with public-private partnerships to the point where not just experiments are privately funded, but also space stations themselves are privately funded. And of course, the Johnson Space Center here, where we are right now, is going to be a leader in that effort. And of course, when we go to the moon, we want to be able to stay. And in order to achieve that, we need commercial partners on the surface of the moon. And to that end, the president recently signed an executive order saying that the resources that are extracted from the moon are available to the people who extract those resources. And that follows many, many years of law and precedent as it relates to international waters. Resources extracted from international waters belong to the individuals who extract those resources. And that should apply to the moon and other celestial bodies as well. To be clear, the United States of America will always, always, always follow the Outer Space Treaty. And the moon and other celestial bodies cannot be appropriated for national sovereignty, just like the ocean cannot be appropriated for national sovereignty. Although some nations don't follow that, that is the international law. And so we want to apply American values as we go forward. To do that, the Artemis program, we have established what we call the Artemis Accords, which establishes how we expect nations to behave in space for the sustainability of exploration, standards of behavior that make sure that not just this generation, but many generations that come after us will be able to continue exploring space and going further, and be able to go further than ever before. So today it's about low Earth orbit. Tomorrow it's about the moon. And of course, we want to stay at the moon for long periods of time. We want to learn how to live and work on the moon. We want to go with commercial partners, international partners, and use the resources of the moon to live and work for long periods of time, and then apply that architecture, apply that learning at Mars as well. So the vision is big. NASA's budget today is as high as it's ever been in nominal dollars. Maybe not in real dollars if we go back to Apollo, but maybe we can get there soon too. The budget request for 2021 is $25.2 billion, which is a $3 billion increase in 1 year. And so our budgets are going up. They're going up rapidly. My job is to make sure that we have the bipartisan, apolitical support to achieve these objectives. and so far we have been able to do that. But going to the moon and on to Mars is going to be a tough challenge, and we don't want to go alone. We want to go with international partners, and we want to go with commercial partners, and that's really what the Artemis program is laying the foundation for. And really, it's in fact what the commercial program has already begun laying the foundation for. So the agenda is big, and our ambitions are big, but certainly this nation can lead. And we want to lead in space. We want to build a coalition that can work together to achieve these stunning achievements. We've started that with the International Space Station, but there's a lot of room for more. We've got 15 countries that operate the ISS, and there's a lot more countries that want to join us, and certainly we want them to be a part of it as well. So the future is very bright.
Great. We have a next question from Mike Wallace, and if you want to ask a question, you press *1. Mike Wallace?
Hi there, Mike Wallace, Space.com. Thank you, guys. Yeah, this is a very exciting day. I just want to say congratulations to everybody. I was just wondering, Kenny, this is probably for Kenny. Like, have you heard anything from the international partners, kind of based on this milestone? And what are their thoughts about having another private spaceship coming up to the space station, and how it could that kind of theoretically be used by the international partners on the space station? Thank you.
You bet, Mike, and that's a great question. I've heard from all of our international partner contacts this morning. As you know, most of the partners are represented here in Houston. They have liaisons here, which again helps to facilitate our communication back and forth on a day-to-day basis. But they've been part of this entire effort that led to the mission that we've all experienced over the last 24 hours. And to a partner, they have been nothing but supportive. And after the docking today, again, I heard from every one of those partners, all of them basically cheering us on and talking about the historic nature of not just yesterday, but the entire time period that led up to the docking today. So I think they all felt like they were part of something. There was something big and something grand and something that really was a next step, which, as the administrator said, we're trying to do the next steps with partners, and be they commercial or international, and the set of partners that we work with on the International Space Station applaud these kind of efforts like what we're doing, and are very supportive, and we're certainly working with them as part of our coalition of partners to identify opportunities for them to fly on these vehicles as well. So yes, again, we're just going to move forward from here, and the partnership's going with us, and they're going to be part of this effort to continue flying these commercial vehicles to station.
Thank you. I have a question that came in from Joey Roulette. His question is NASA still in negotiations to fly a Russian cosmonaut on Crew Dragon, and when do you expect to lock down a deal?
Well, the answer is yes. Those are discussions that we're continuing to have within the international partnership. As you know, up to this point, we have been purchasing seats from our Russian colleagues flying on their Russian Soyuz vehicles. But certainly we are working in a direction to come up with a different arrangement, if you will, that will allow us to fly on each other's vehicles, and therefore ensure that at any given time that we have somebody that's represented on the Russian segment as well as somebody that's on the USOS segment, regardless of the vehicle that's carrying people to station. So those are active, ongoing discussions. I anticipate, those discussions are going to continue to progress forward, especially as we continue to see more successes with these missions with Steve, Kathy, and the Commercial Crew Program. So absolutely, those are active discussions, and again, we'll continue to head in that direction.
Great. Our next question is from Marina Corin. Marina?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, great. Question about Doug. After he entered the space station, we saw him dabbing at his forehead, and then someone got him a tissue. Poor guy looked like he hit his head on the way out. Is that what happened? Did he start bleeding, and is he okay?
Yeah, I can take that one. I mean, yeah, Doug did, as he was coming through, he bumped his head. Chell could probably talk to this. It happens sometimes while you're on station. He's fine. He looked great in the press conference. It just is one of those things. I think Chell talked about adapting, right, as you get your space legs underneath you. He was in a relatively small vehicle for the first 19 hours or so. Then he went into a big vehicle, and he bumped his head a little bit, but he's doing fine.
And I haven't had a chance to chat with Doug yet, of course, but I can tell you that for those of us, especially first-time flyers, it takes, I think, a good 4 to 6 weeks to really adapt to that weightless environment. And as the veteran crew on board, when you have new folks coming aboard, and I know for myself that as I translated through those long modules for the first time, I would leave cameras and equipment, be knocking those off of the wall. And so it definitely takes a little bit of time to get your space legs. I know Bob and Doug will transition very quickly, but it was awesome to see them coming through that forward hatch. We haven't seen that for many years, and we're looking forward to many more crews coming through that forward and the overhead hatch as well.
Thank you. We'll do our last question from Marcia Dunn.
Yes, hi, either for Steve or Kenny. When do you anticipate deciding whether to proceed with the spacewalks, and how quickly could you start kicking them off? Would this be June, do you think, or would you wait till July? Thanks a lot.
Hi, Marcia. We're still having those discussions. If we head down this path, it's most likely going to be towards the end of June. We had considered doing some upfront work ahead of this mission to start laying the groundwork for that, but decided against that, just to make sure that we got the crew on orbit, and that way we weren't in this constant sort of replan in case we were having technical issues or weather issues and so forth. So we made the decision that we would wait till the crew got on board and then start to lay some of these upfront items in the plan. So we've got about another week and a half, and then you'll start to see some build up. And again, you won't see it, but there will be things that'll start to happen in the direction of preparing for some EVAs that'll kick off around the end of June. I would tell you at this point, I would call that very preliminary planning, just because, again, we need to work with Steve and the rest of the agency leadership and make sure that we're well calibrated on how we want to approach the next few weeks with this Dragon on board, and making sure that we're learning everything that we can, and that we've got all the right priorities in place. But in order for us to do some EVAs, we've probably got about a week and a half, and then we'll need to start that ramp up in order to get out the hatch by about the end of June. And if we do head in that direction, we'll probably go on 6-day centers, with the exception of the middle of July timeframe, where we've got a high beta period, where the sun angle on the station, really, it's just because of the power issues that we have in those time frames, we probably would steer clear of trying to do an EVA in that time frame. But anyway, that's the general thinking. I would call it more at the 10,000 foot level at this point, as opposed to the 200 foot level, but hopefully that helps.
Thank you so much. We're going to close it out with closing remarks from our administrator.
Well, thank you, Bettina. I just want to again congratulate the NASA team and congratulate the SpaceX team. This has been a long time in the making, and I think it's been really astonishing to see how it came together. NASA set what the requirements were, and those requirements were based on payload and based on safety, and then our commercial partners innovated. And we got very unique solutions, one from SpaceX and one from Boeing. And as of right now, the SpaceX solution is attached to the International Space Station, and we will be working day in and day out to make sure that it comes home safely with our astronauts. And we will continue working with Boeing to make sure that they are successful as well, because they have had significant milestones that are impressive. and we need to get them across the finish line. So I just want to say congratulations to the Commercial Crew program. Steve Stitch, you and your team, and Kathy Leaders have done just amazing work, and we are so grateful to you, and we're grateful to the SpaceX team as well. And here we go. We're back. We're launching America. So thank you for everybody who paid attention to this really, I think, monumental achievement, and we've got more to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. It concludes our press conference. Have a great day.